Welcome in to another Running with the Wolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I'm joined, as always, by Chris Emerson. Chris, how we doing?
Man, we're doing great, man. We're doing great. Everything seemed to work. It's good times to be a Minnesota Timberwolves fan after that first game.
Absolutely. And I just want to say something to all of the people who said, oh, it's all doom and gloom. The Wolves are not going to even win a game in this series. Oh, man, the Suns are going to kill them by 30 every game. I just got to say this.
Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.
It definitely did not.
We lost you here. It definitely did not go the way a lot of people thought it was going to go. That's for sure. I mean, even talking national pundits, they were all saying it was going to be a sweep by the Suns or a 6-game Suns. And truthfully, I thought the same thing, the way that we've looked in the regular season versus that team. But man, hats off to Chris Finch and pulling the strings the right way.
Like we were saying, Chris Finch has never had an entire week to get ready for an NBA team. He had a week and he did wonders with it.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the last podcast, and I didn't really even think about it. And he mentioned, like we've had some actual practice and stuff like that, and that was good. And what really made me kind of thinking more positively Timberwolves as it got closer to the game was just hearing him talk in his interviews. He's like, yeah, we added stuff that is huge wrinkles, like large wrinkles, large changes to how we do things specifically for this team. And, that was needed because how we had played that team up until that point was not going well, so everything he did was great and just more fuel for Coach of the Year. I mean, if we were being completely open about who should win that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously, but the only problem is that is a regular season award, so that'll hurt his chances there. I think.
Right.
I think actually Mark Dangold already won that award. I'm pretty sure that came out that he won Coach of the Year.
And
but
I don't think it's not earned by him either. I mean, he's a great coach too, but I always say I think it's harder to stay at the top for as long as we did and hold off all the people trying to take your spot than to be one of the people fighting to make their way up. And if what really decided it was one game or whatever, that happened right at the end, that's kind of silly. I get it. They have a younger team, but again, it's hard to work with the egos that Chris Finch has had to work with. It's a lot easier to work with a bunch of college kids that are all trying hard. So whatever. Yeah. I don't think it bothers Chris Finch.
And something that I noticed just looking at the stats from the game, Rudy Gobert, a combined minus 68 in the first 3 games, led the team with a plus 19 in this one. I mean, he was great out there. I don't think he had any blocks, but just the presence out there. The Phoenix Suns like to get to the basket. Well, at least Devin Booker and Bradley Beal do. But they were scared off a lot of times by Rudy in the middle there.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a handful of neverminds. And speaking of Booker, man, I mean, I don't know if you plan to get into it, but a lot of people. One thing that happens a lot in basketball, especially when people try to analyze basketball based on their opinions that they've had, is if a player plays bad, they like to say, oh, well, you're just looking at the box score. You got to watch the game. He does things that don't show up. And a lot of times that's true. And a lot of times that's BS by a fan that's just trying to, give credit to their player who had a bad game. Mm-hmm. But Jaden McDaniels yesterday did exactly that. He made plays that did not show up in the box score. I mean, some did, but the way that he controlled Booker, like you mentioned Booker, he had Booker shook early where Booker was in his head and or McDaniels was in Booker's head. And if that sort of thing can continue where we can take Booker pretty much out of the game with McDaniels and have him forcing things and causing dumb penalty or dumb fouls and that sort of thing is so huge for the Timberwolves, would be so huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's Jaden McDaniels' play style is almost made for the playoffs. He definitely is an aggressive guy who likes to get after the ball, take chances on steals and blocks. And that's exactly what you can do in the playoffs because a lot of time the refs put their whistle away. I mean, you said it. Devin Booker, 5 for 16 from the field. He did hit 2 threes, but 18 points. Well, if Devin Booker and Bradley Beal combine both are under 20 points, I like our chances in this series. And like you said, Jane McDaniels, he looked like a brand new person out there. Like it's almost like he found a second wind for the for the postseason because he came out with a spirit of vengeance, definitely.
He did, and like you said, if games keep being officiated the way that they were, where they let you do a little grabbing, let you get to hands a little bit, you're offhand, they're not really calling offhand penalties as much or fouls as much. If they do that, we're going to be in a great place. That definitely plays into the number one defense type of role that we have. So, I mean, kind of like how Memphis back when Conley was there, when they were the grit and grind, really was the hold and grab type team. And it's just since you had that moniker of grit and grime, you got away with it. And that's sort of what we're doing now. And is if we can get away with that, like a lot of teams are in the playoffs, we're going to be even better defensively. And I mean, it was really a great performance.
Yeah, and where you got to go is two big factors in this game. One was rebounding. Out offensive rebound the Suns 13-3. And I found this a crazy stat. Out rebounded in total 52-28. I mean, it was really on Nurkic to get a lion's share of the rebounds in that game. And the Wolves, to their credit, just got after the defensive glass and offensive glass as well and just killed them on that factor. And the other place where the Wolves just killed them were on bench points as well, 41-18, and pretty much 4 of those 18 points from the Suns were in garbage time when Josh Okogie and the rest of the gang were out there. So credit to the bench. And one more stat before I throw it to you. I looked it up. The Wolves are about middle in the pack for scoring bench, but their plus minus for bench is second best in the entire NBA at 902. The bench is a 902 plus on the entire season. The only team better was the Pelicans, and a big guy with for the last game. He did it when we beat the Nuggets in the playoffs. Nickeil Alexander-Walker coming off the bench, a plus 28, 18 points. Shot 9 threes, hit 4 of them, 7 for 12 from the field. And you can say it once, you can say it again. Thank you so much for giving us Nickeil Alexander-Walker in that Mike Conley trade, Utah. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. And if I'm doing a little bit of backpedaling this episode, like I will, because I think it's deserved, and I think you need to when it's deserved. Karl Anthony Towns was impressive in the first half. The way that he controlled his matchup with Durant, where he took him in the post and he took him right to the rack a couple of times to get fouls on him. The way that he handled him defensively, giving him hard shots, like that's all we're asking. Durant's going to score on anybody.
Right.
All you have to do is just not give him layups. And what helped having Karl Anthony Towns on Durant was when it comes to rebounding, now Karl Anthony Towns is on a big, that he can box out and go get, where if he's on Grayson Allen at the 3-point line, you're taking our big out of the rebound battle. And now you've got, a mismatch for them somewhere. So I think everything worked out. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns was sort of a ghost in the second half, but he set us up in that first half for where we needed to be. He made them adjust their defense because he was playing big, and he's going to need to keep doing that. And almost more importantly, he wasn't getting overly sticky with the ball, and he was moving the ball. I mean, that is the biggest thing that's been his downside forever. And he, like I said, he drove us through that first half when nothing else was really working. Anthony Edwards wasn't being great, and it was sort of sluggish. We're getting a lot of turnovers, but he forced it. for us to stay close just by doing the simple play, and that is huge for him. Let's hope that continues and then opens up for Anthony Edwards to take over in the second half.
And I thought you mentioned some on the past podcast that was exactly right. It was that we're hoping that Karl Anthony Towns doesn't try to put a stamp on the playoffs early.
Yeah.
And he really didn't do that. He played within his means. He played within the offense, didn't try to force. And here's another good thing. He's another guy like Jaden McDaniels who, when the whistle gets put away a little bit,
yeah,
he excels in that kind of environment because he's a physical player down low as well. So that's only going to help him. And we got to mention Anthony Edwards. Playoff Anthony Edwards exploded in the third quarter and fourth quarter. One of the best performances and clutchest performances I have seen out of a player ever. Now, obviously, it's no Tracy McGrady scoring 10 points when down 10 with a minute left. But
right.
In Wolves history, that's got to be up there as one of the clutchest performances. And I know people are going to say, oh, that can't be possible because they killed him, but he was unstoppable. And for all of the chatter of, oh, they're going to take Anthony Edwards out of the game, that's all they're going to do, other guys are going to have to step up, which is true. But Anthony Edwards is still a fantastic player. Put whoever you want on him. Put 5 guys on him. He's going to find a shot.
Yeah, I felt like they weren't really doing that tight shell as much. Maybe they tried to switch something up thinking that we were going to try to counter that, and maybe they'll come back to it. Another thing Timberwolves fans have to realize is that the series is not over by any means.
Right.
Devin Booker's not going to have that type of game. I don't think he's going to let somebody get in his head for the whole series. I hope he does. Bradley Beal was pretty much, I didn't even know he was on the court. Grayson Allen isn't going to play that poor. He's going to hit some shots, maybe. I don't know. Like, they're probably not going to play that well. The Timberwolves, literally everything worked for us. Like, all our role players had big moments. I know this is super pessimistic by me, but when I saw, Slow-Mo get hurt in his first shift, I was like, that's going to help us because we get to have more Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We get to have more Jaden McDaniels, who's playing well. Like, we were really rolling well when Nas was out there. The whole lineup that's Edwards, Alexander Walker, McDaniels, Nas, and Rudy. That lineup is, that's a lineup that drove us those games when Cat was out recently. That lineup is a hard lineup to deal with because the ball moves and there's people that can defend on many different levels. I think that we're going to have to, at some point the bench is going to get a little slimmer, and maybe that choice was made for us via injury.
Yeah, and you're talking about injury. Grayson Allen, as you were mentioning earlier, only 4 points in this game. Of course, he got hurt about 3/4 of the way through. He's questionable for tomorrow or Tuesday's game. Also, like you were mentioning, Kyle Anderson also questionable for tomorrow's game. We'll have to see on that.
Let me ask you this, Gabe. I want to ask you a question. So
Yeah.
if you were to rank, a friend of mine was wondering if you had to rank the Timberwolves' performance from game one, and you're putting them in order of importance for the game. How would you rank your top 5 or 4 or 3, whatever?
Top 5? Let's go top 5. Obviously
Anthony Edwards is number 1.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards number 1. No doubt about that. I would put Karl Anthony Towns 2, just because I thought he had some big shots in the first half and was under control. Nickeil Alexander-Walker 3, definitely big shots off the bench. And then I'm going to go with 2 defensive guys, definitely Jaden McDaniels. And these are really 4A and 4B. I would say Jaden McDaniels with his defensive activity and just his aggressiveness out there and
just
making
huge
Booker
plays out of the game mentally too.
Taking Booker out of the game. And then I would go the anchor in the middle, Rudy Gobert, 14 points, 16 rebounds. Didn't have a block, but who cares when you win by 25? Because Rudy Gobert's worth isn't measured in how many blocks, or else Wembanyama would win Defensive Player of the Year. It's measured in how many times guys go through the lane on the other team and are like, nope, going to go back out that way. Or he just disrupts the shot. One more point before I send it to you.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert is not a bad isolation defender. He's
Perimeter
not.
defender. No.
He's actually perimeter defender. He's actually pretty good. Now, did Kevin Durant score on him? Yeah, because Kevin Durant is going to score over anyone. But I mean,
no, that's an
you-
old take. That's a garbage take that
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert is played off the court in the playoffs. It's such a lazy take based off like a couple series when the Jazz had literally no perimeter defenders, so everybody was just running directly at the rim free. You know,
Right.
like yeah, that's not going to work. You know, there's ways, but the way Rudy manned up and stepped out on the perimeter and defended Booker, defended Durant, defended Beal in isolation, and we didn't even send another guy. We're like, okay, Rudy's got it. You know, everyone stay home. And he, I mean, did people score? Yeah, but all of them were like contested, long, mid-range jumpers. And if that's what you're taking when you've got a 7'1" guy locked in on you, we'll take that every time. I mean, Rudy was magnificent.
Yeah, he was. And he's been magnificent all season, which is why Wolves fans, and I know there's a lot of plebs on Twitter and stuff that, oh, look at the blocks. Obviously, Wembanyama is Defensive Player of the Year. And don't get me wrong, Wembanyama is going to be an amazing player and may win, 5, 6, 7, 8 Defensive Players of the Year. But the most impactful player on defense this entire year was Rudy Gobert.
He drove our whole team's success. It literally drove our whole team's success was how he changed our entire defense. And in last year, it was like, okay, he gave us an elite drop defender, which he did. And that was great. But this year, Chris Finch came in and was like, hey, that's not all we have to do. Now you have to step up and you have to be able to guard on the perimeter. And he stepped in and took it, something he'd never done in his career. He's in the greatest shape it looks like he's ever been in. And he's locking all world Hall of Fame guards up on the perimeter. And it's crazy to see. I mean, it takes us to a whole nother level.
And that's where a lot of people look at Walker Kessler, who we obviously gave up in the trade, and are like, well, we could have just done that with Walker Kessler. Rudy Gobert does so many things that Walker Kessler does not do. And like I said, same with what I was saying with the last guy. I wish Walker Kessler no ill will. I think he's going to have a solid NBA career. But I mean, there were times where he was deep on the bench in Utah. Like he was barely playing at all. He is, don't get me wrong, great block shot player. I think he's going to have a solid NBA career, but he's not Rudy Gobert.
No. Yeah. And I mean, if you can't start, and I get he's still young, but if you can't consistently start for the Utah Jazz right now as a big, I mean, it's telling you something.
Yeah. When John Collins is starting over you.
Yeah. Or Kelly Olynyk or whoever you got. I mean, yeah. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, now I can. Yeah. I mean, so he'll be fine, but we'll see.
Yeah. And something that I think we can really take advantage of in the series, like I was saying, the defense or the rebounding. If we have 4 or 5 guys rebounding on every possession, it doesn't matter how well the Suns shoot, because I doubt they're going to shoot 60%. If we can secure the rebound and shoot maybe at a 50 or 45% clip, I like our chances, because they don't have many rebounders. What, they're going to play extensive minutes for Bol? I don't think so. I don't think Bol really got any minutes until the end of the game. So and
it's not like he's rebounding at a high level anyways.
Right. He should. He's huge. But
exactly.
He just, man, I am really, what was the number one thing that you were encouraged by the win on yesterday?
I'll give you 2 things. The first thing that I noticed right away was Jaden McDaniels was corner crashing and being active on the glass. Like you were saying, he was knocking balls around. He was grabbing offensive rebounds, and he was doing things that he normally doesn't do. Normally he just stands there. So him being active and making an impact, on those type of things was huge. And then Karl Anthony Towns not letting himself be defended by smaller players was the largest thing that I saw. Like there's a couple of times Grayson Allen shut him down at the 3-point line on some post up that was pathetic. But for the most times, if we can get Karl Anthony Towns to catch the ball on the block, like I don't want him catching from the 3-point line and, crab dribbling backwards from 25 feet. Although they kept bringing doubles, which then made the ball swing, so it worked. But I want to see Karl Anthony Towns catch it on the block where he can do a one dribble post move on Grayson Allen or KD or whatever. But you have to, if you're a power forward center, you can't let yourself be defended by smaller people, or else you're no longer a power forward center. You're just whoever they are. So if a Grayson Allen defends you and you let that happen, you're no longer a center, Karl Anthony Towns. You're just a tall, really slow shooting guard, because
Right.
you're letting the shooting guard defend you. And that kills us. We can't have that. So punish those smalls. All that extra effort by McDaniels, and even Nas was crashing the boards. I think something he learned when Cat was out was how important and how he can actually rebound at a higher level. And that sort of activity is just going to push us through this series, I think, because they can't match up the bodies that we have. We have so many bodies to throw.
Yeah. And what do you think? Let's turn the coin a little bit. What do you think the number one adjustment from the Suns for game 2 will be? What do you think they'll do different? Will they throw another guy at Ant? Will they emphasize crashing the boards a little bit more? What do you think?
Well, I think they're probably going to try to drop in that shell again where they've got, one guy on Ant and two guys kind of watching and force our guys to hit shots. And then I think they're going to have to try to get Grayson Allen going. If he's hurt, they're kind of in trouble because they have nobody on the bench really other than him, or like no other fourth player. They've got their big three, and that's about it.
Royce O'Neal hit a couple shots, but I'm not worried about Royce O'Neal.
Royce O'Neal can do whatever he wants. If he beats us, so be it. But when he's the league 3-point percentage shooter like Grayson Allen, I'm a little worried sometimes. And a guy who shot 80% versus us all year. So they got to get him going. They got to find a way to get him some shots. But I mean, they'll be fine. Booker's going to have a game where he drops 35. Like these type of things happen. We just are going to have to weather the storm when that happens.
So I got to ask, do you want to change your pick from Suns and 6, or are you sticking with it?
Well, I'll tell you what, from seeing that first game, I was watching with a buddy of mine. And before the game started, I said, I don't even care if we win or lose. I just want this game to show that we can compete, because we haven't shown that yet. Like we haven't shown that we can compete with the Suns yet this year. So I wanted to see that, and we did. So I said Suns and 6. I would love to go back on that. I'll go Wolves and 7 maybe.
There you go. All right, we are on the same wavelength then. I love it. Well, I think we're going to put an exclamation point in it there. Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, I'm ready for Tuesday. Let's go Wolves.
Let's go Wolves. And you are listening to the Running with the Wolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And as always, go Wolves.